One action is all it takes to get the pendulum going. Now, to keep the momentum, it requires commitment and discipline, not motivation, which is nonsense. Motivation will get you started. It's a great catalyst, but when it's 8 months into the project and you're exhausted and you don't want to do it anymore because the outcome is still another 8 months away, it's discipline that gets you there.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Thrive State Podcast. I am your host, Dr. V, triple board certified MD and performance and longevity expert. On today's podcast, we talk about trauma, but how trauma experienced in our childhood can lead us to getting disease, but how we could start to awaken from the life that we live to actually transform our health, our relationship, and our businesses. Now, if you don't already know, what we experience in childhood, whether it be big T trauma like divorce, like drugs in the family, like neglect or abuse in the family, they really shape our childhood experiences. In fact, there's a study from UC San Francisco demonstrating that people that have these adverse childhood experiences have proclivity to getting chronic disease, including mental disorders, cancers, and other autoimmune conditions. Why is that the case? Well, what I've done in my research is studied up on trauma and those experiences. And what happens is that when we experience those things in life, it programs us to fear and survival. And who we become as a result in living through the lens of fear and survival make us make unconscious choices in the 5 areas of life that most affect our health. This is why people with these adverse childhood traumas are so poised to get chronic disease in the future. Now, it's not even big T traumas. Not being seen, not being heard, not being loved, not being able to express or exist as the most authentic version of you can be seen as traumas as well. And the beautiful thing is that when we start to remember who we are, when we start to live as who we're meant to live as a human being, we will not only reverse chronic conditions, but live to our fullest potential so that we can really truly serve the people around us and the world. But before we get into the podcast, let me welcome all the newcomers. Hi, I'm Dr. V. Every week I have the extreme honor of being able to interview the world thought leaders in mental and emotional wellness, in biohacking and science and spirituality, to bring you the tools and tactics for you to reach your Thrive State. What is the Thrive State? Thrive State is an energetic state of being through conscious choices of living authentically aligned to who we are. And that actually activates the genes for longevity and human potential. If you've been a loyal listener to the podcast, thank you so much. If you haven't already, please help the show grow by leaving us a 5-star review wherever you're listening to this podcast. Engage with the podcast, share this podcast with your friends and family members, and also do us a favor by subscribing to the podcast and hitting that notification button so you don't miss future episodes. And as a gift for being a loyal listener, if you haven't already, pick up my free longevity and performance resources at thrivestatestarter.com. If you haven't already, also pick up my book. You can get that at thrivestatebook.com or go to Amazon or wherever books are sold. I guarantee you your life will change when you understand the framework of health, longevity, and human performance. Now, on to today's podcast. Today's podcast, I get the extreme honor of interviewing Michael Unbroken. He is someone that actually went through a lot of trauma in his life. And not only was he obese at one point of his life, he was also homeless. But being able to awaken from how we live life, being able to understand that potentially those traumas could lead us down a path of unconscious choices that produces obesity and chronic disease. But once we start to awaken from that, once we start to understand that we truly have the choice to transform, health, relationships, and our success in life start to open up. This is an interview I actually did in my Thrive State Summit series. So if you enjoy this interview and want access to more digital content just like that, you can receive that as well as all my courses at mythrivestate.com/pro. And as a listener to the podcast, you can receive 50% off all digital products by using the code ThriveState50. My friends, you are going to have an amazing conversation and experience. Please enjoy this beautiful podcast with my friend, Michael Unbroken. Hello, and welcome back to another session of the Thrive State Summit. With me today is a remarkable individual, and I just met him not too long ago. He's become a really good friend, and I can't wait to dive into his story because, I myself don't even know it that well yet, but it's just so inspiring. This is a man who went from homeless to hero. with a adverse childhood experience score of 10. I don't personally know anybody with that, but Michael Unbroken has found his way from stuck, hurt, and broken to being the hero of his own journey. And today, Michael has coached over thousands of trauma warriors around the world to learn to love themselves, to get unstuck, and to be unbroken. Michael is the author and best-selling book of Think Unbroken and is a coach, mentor, and educator for adult survivors of child abuse. Michael spends his time helping other survivors get out of the vortex and to become the hero of their own story. He hosts the Think Unbroken podcast, teaches at the Think Unbroken Academy, and is on a mission to end generational trauma in his lifetime through education and information. Michael, welcome to the summit.
Thanks, man. I'm super excited to be here with you. Thanks so much for having me, and I'm excited to be able to help and speak into these people today.
Well, thanks so much. Well, first of all, not everybody knows the adverse childhood experiences score. And so I'm just going to break it down generally what it is, but I want you to take us through the story of you experiencing these things so that you could talk to us about what catalyzed your transformation. But the adverse childhood experience score is something that the American College of Pediatrics came with, and it's basically a score of 10, and it includes divorce, drugs, different type of abuse in the family, and all these traumas. The higher the score, they're more linked with mental health disease later on in life, physical diseases such as cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and the like. And so, Michael, can you go through potentially what you have gone through and some of those traumas that you've experienced earlier on and a little bit of your story?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that research actually changed my life forever. I was 30 years old. I had just left Indiana. I was born and raised, moved across the country, and I was sitting in the living room and just like there's got to be something about research about child abuse. And I came across Dr. Felitti, who had started the ACE survey back in 1994 with Kaiser Permanente and the California Center for Disease Control. And they found this starking correlation between adverse childhood experiences and long-term detrimental health outcomes. Here's the crux of it. At 25, I was 350 pounds, smoking 2 packs a day, drinking myself to sleep in a toxic relationship, and $50,000 in debt. And if you look at the correlations, I mean, depending on where you fall in this questionnaire, you're 2,200% more likely to use tobacco, 2,000% more likely to use alcohol, 5,200% more likely to be suicidal or to attempt suicide. And I was like checking off all these boxes, and I'm like, oh, I actually have causation and correlation now. Now I can understand a lot of these behavioral patterns from an analytical perspective. Because when I was young, man, I grew up in hell. There's no kind way of saying it. My mother actually cut off my right index finger when I was just 4 years old. So you can see multiple surgeries, multiple skin grafts. I can't feel it. It's discolored, stitches, everything. My stepdad, super abusive. This guy was 6'4", 220, linebacker, beating up the 7-year-old. So you imagine that life. I was really, really, really poor as a kid. Like we were the most poor kids in the most poor neighborhood of the most poor district of Indianapolis. And our clothes came from the Goodwill and from homeless shelters. And sometimes we didn't know where our next meal was coming from. And my mom was in and out of rehab. Between 8 to 12 years old, dude, I lived with probably 30 different families, getting bounced around place to place to place, not in the foster system, but just kind of like this quasi existence where I never knew I was going to end up separated from my brothers, separated from my parents. When I was 12, my grandmother actually adopted me legally. This was kind of a godsend because August of that year, I'm 11 heading into 12 years old. I had lived by myself in an abandoned house for 6 weeks. Imagine that, 11 and a half, 12 years old, living in an abandoned house. And so for once, I finally started to have a little bit of security. But man, I'm biracial. I'm black and white. And my grandma's an old racist white lady in a town in Tennessee you never heard of. So it's like, imagine the identity crisis that starts to present itself under those circumstances. And at 12 years old, I got high for the first time. I got drunk for the first time when I was 13. At 15, I got expelled from school for selling drugs. And I was just like, I don't even know what's happening in my life right now. It is just pure chaos. And like many kids in that situation, survival, security, and stability is what we're seeking. And I found that on the streets. I found that with friends. And by the time I was 18, I got put in this last chance program and I still didn't graduate high school. Basically, they gave me the diploma and like literally my summer school teacher, after all my friends have graduated, my summer school teacher literally goes, "We're just going to let you have the diploma. We're done with you. The streets will sort you out." And I was like, whoa, that was an eye opener. And my friends are getting arrested. My friends are going to jail. My friends are getting murdered. I have family members who are in prison for life. And I'm just looking at my life, Ken. I'm like, I'm going down this path. I am going to die. I am going to go to prison. And I just made this declaration to myself, man. I don't know where it came from, but I was like, I want to make 100 grand a year by the time I'm 21. And I did it. And I did it legally, which was very, very important to me because my three childhood best friends have been murdered. I've been in handcuffs more times than I can count. And I knew if I didn't switch something where I was going to end up. But, money brings out who you truly are in that moment. I found myself at 350 pounds, smoking 2 packs a day, drinking myself to sleep, hitting rock bottom, and ultimately putting a gun in my mouth. And it was just like, I couldn't understand at that time how I could have all of these things, the money, the success, the cars, the girls, the clothes, and like, yet my life was a disaster. And I just didn't want to live anymore. It's so weird because it's almost like divine intervention in a way. I'm laying in bed. Again, keep in mind, dude, I'm 350 pounds. I know something you relate to, maybe not that weight, but being overweight. And, I'm laying in bed eating chocolate cake. And dude, I'm watching the CrossFit games. And it's like, what is happening right now? And I picked myself up. I went in the bathroom, looked at myself in the mirror, and I asked myself this question, Ken, that changed my life forever. Forever. I said, what are you willing to do to have the life that you want to have? And the answer was no excuses, just results. And for 13 years, I've been living by that. And it has led me to where I am today and to be here with you.
Oh, it's beautiful. Let me ask you, when you had that gun in your mouth, what stepped in that moment that didn't allow you to pull that trigger?
Dude, I don't know. It's divine intervention. It's God, spirit, universe, mother nature, Batman. Bro, I don't know. I just know that I was done, man. And it was a really dark moment because my girlfriend's on the other side of the door, like banging on the door, begging me to talk to her. And look, ultimately, one of the things that I think is really difficult in this mental health journey that we all go through is that this is kind of the non-plot. Like people don't talk about it, but millions and millions and millions of people not only think about this on a daily basis, but also people take action against it. And it's like, I can get it. You know what I mean? Like, because I've been there. And I look at my life now and it's like, there's no way. Like, there's just no way. I figured out the healing journey. I figured out support systems. I figured out community. Most importantly, I figured out how to take care of myself. I mean, obviously, you and I have met in person. I'm not 350 pounds smoking 2 packs and drinking myself to sleep anymore. And so there's something really important about this journey of finding and seeking self love. But look, dude, you can go and give yourself affirmations until the cows come home, but it's not going to help you if you don't take massive action. And what I realized when I had woken up that day and I'm watching the CrossFit games and I answer that question, that no excuses, just results moniker, that motto, that life statement that I made has carried weight in ways that I didn't even understand when I said it to myself
Mm.
because I just realized I'd always negotiated. Ken, like I'm the guy, true story. In my neighborhood, there was a gym that I had a membership to that I would get in my car, smoke a cigarette, drive to the gym, sit in the parking lot, go to the bar next door to the gym, have a drink, go to McDonald's, get a Big Mac, extra large fries, and water because I didn't drink pop because I was being healthy. Smoke another cigarette, look at the gym, and say tomorrow
Mm.
until I stopped saying tomorrow.
Right. So let me ask you this. Doing the work that you've done, can you maybe unpack how these childhood adverse experiences leads to a situation just like that, where in your conscious mind, you were probably had the initial intention of going to the gym, but potentially some bigger factors underneath had you sabotage the thing that you wanted to do. How do they all kind of connect?
Look, if you grow up being told and being shown that it is okay to not take care of yourself, to not love yourself, to not follow through on your commitments, not be a person of integrity and honor, to be a victim. Dude, the number one goal, Ken, I'm not making this up. The number one goal that people in my family and my community had when I was a kid was to get on welfare,
Mm.
because then you win the game. What kind of mindset is that to teach a child? How insane is that of an idea to lay that out in front of people, right? And so it's conditioning. I mean, you know this as well as I do. You're conditioned into your behavior patterns. And then what happens as an adult, you're like, why can't I change? That's the number one question. And that's really the question you asked me. Why can't I change? You can't change because you haven't decided. People will decide emotionally, but they won't decide physically. And so the transformation journey for me really only began when I started doing the thing that I knew I needed to do. Most people, I would argue with you that everyone watching this right now knows exactly what they need to be doing. They know it. How do they know it? Because it shows up in their mind when they're in silence. They can't sleep at night. Every single day they have anxiety about it. And that thing could be little, dude. It's like very small stuff or very big stuff, but it's all the same. It's like one action is all it takes to get the pendulum going. Now, to keep the momentum, it requires commitment and discipline, not motivation, which is nonsense. Motivation will get you started. It's a great catalyst, but when it's 8 months into the project and you're exhausted and you don't want to do it anymore because the outcome is still another 8 months away, it's discipline that gets you there. And so I really took heed of this idea where it's like, why could I be so driven to make $1 million by the time I'm 25? But I have no health, I have no relationships, but I can make money. And I realized like I was chasing this ideal that this thing over here would make me feel whole. It'd make me love myself. It would build confidence. It would make me proud. But the reality is, every bit of confidence and pride that I have in myself comes when I'm at the gym at 9 o'clock at night because I promised myself I would go, when I don't have that glass of wine or that beer, when I don't smoke that joint, when I don't cheat on my girlfriend, when I pay my bills on time. Dude, I used to have a stack of bills on top of a stack of bills and like 50 grand in debt, even though I was making 150 to 200 grand a year. It's not even a mindset issue. It's truly an action issue. And you have to be able to pull yourself through the pain of the moment into the pain of the unknown. And that's what people don't understand. If you look up the definition of my favorite word, which is suffering, it means to be uncomfortable. And most people are unwilling to be uncomfortable because playing a victim is very easy. It is so much easier to blame you, society, my family, Obama, like whatever, dude. It was everyone's fault but Michael's fault. And that's not taking culpability. Like, dude, it's never my responsibility that my mother cut my finger off. It's never my responsibility that I had an abusive stepfather, that I was homeless, that I had a learning disability. Like, that's not on me. But what do you do when you're 21, 29, 36, 42, 52, 60 years old? It's like, are you going to keep blaming everyone for the life that you have now? And that's a really, really, really difficult path to walk because it really truly involves you looking at and assessing. I've actually been conditioned to blame the world. I've been conditioned to put myself in this position of not loving myself, not taking care of myself, not showing up. I've been conditioned to accept, this is a hard word. I've been conditioned to accept the reality for which I live based on the impact of other people. And I'm okay with that. And if you're willing, look, being a victim is not something I'm going to take away from anyone. Bro, life is going to life. Bad things are going to happen to good people. You cannot avoid it. But what you do with those things is what's going to determine what happens in the long run. And I think one of the really interesting things about, especially navigating the childhood trauma arena, is that that is your earliest understanding of self.
Yeah.
So what do you do when you don't know who you are? Because here's my definition of childhood trauma. It's not the scars and the cuts and the burns and the pain and the suffering that we go through that mark us. Scars heal, wounds heal. You know this. The thing that destroys us is the theft of identity. And so when you're trying to step into this next arena, you don't know how because you've never been you before. And the only way that you become you is by doing that thing that's in your head every night.
So good. Can you remind people maybe what the process is? Because I mean, I think some people, when they're in victim mode, it's very easy to say, man, that guy just got a killer mindset. He's able to do that. But when I try to do it, there's all this resistance that comes up in me. Can we just normalize these feelings in terms of what it takes to create this transformation? Because you're breaking the habit of being someone you're not. And it is a conditioned habit and what that looks like. Because I think if people start to understand that, yes, it's going to be hard at first, but the middle's messy. It's never going to look clean and easy for the person doing the transformation. But maybe if they can start to understand that, they could be like, you know what? I effed up today, and I didn't do the thing I said I was going to do, but I remember Michael and Kien saying it's messy in the middle. Can you go through that process for us?
Yeah. And dude, I think that if you are still awake, go do the thing. Like, really, I mean that. Like, if you've made it to 10 o'clock at night and you're like, oh, I didn't do the thing, get out of bed and go do it. Because you have to build and create accountability for yourself. Like, that's really what it comes down to. But you're right. The middle is hard. Dude, 26 to 30 years old were the hardest 4 years of my life. Like, no question asked, because I was in the middle of closing the gap of the identity. Now, obviously, dude, I didn't have these words for it a decade ago, but I just knew like I'm trying these different things and it's like one step forward, 10,000 steps backwards. And I was like, this really sucks. Like, this is very, very, very difficult. But I just knew if I kept going, I wouldn't lose. And that's the game. Can you keep going? But it starts with acknowledgement. Right. Actually, on my board, there's 3 rules that I have when I coach people. It's show up, be honest, execute. Showing up is really about the acknowledgement, taking a naked look unabashedly at your life and telling yourself the truth. Stop lying. Dude, if you just stop lying, your life will be so different. But think about it. Conditioning, we're taught to lie. Where'd that bruise come from? Oh, I fell down the stairs. Why isn't your homework done? It's not me telling them, oh, I don't have electricity. It's me being like, oh, I left it at home. Why aren't you eating at home? Oh, my mom's super busy. Not that my mom is drunk and high on pills, passed out in her own vomit in the living room floor. And so we conditioned from such a young age to lie. What do you do when lying equals safety? Telling the truth might as well be like walking off a cliff.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, cool. If that's true of me and where I'm at, can I begin with something very simple and acknowledging, looking at it as it is whole and truthfully, not sugarcoating it. Stop lying to yourself. Look at your behavior. Bro, you're not supposed to be smoking. You're not supposed to be drinking. You're not supposed to eat fast food. You're not supposed to watch cartoons all day long. But look, this is about you. And what you're supposed to do and what I'm supposed to do are very different. And so I think one of the things people get lost in, they're like, I need the routine and I need the ice bath and I need to read 400 books a year. It's like, no, you don't. You need to do whatever you know that you need to do that's based on the alignment of who you want to become. And so that's where it really gets into the execution phase of it. And it's like, can you just do the thing you said? That's it. And that's the scariest part of it. It truly is. I remember the first time that I walked into a yoga studio. So I'll tell you a quick story. I want to paint a picture for people. At my heaviest at 350, I was terrified of going into the gym. What's funny is just yesterday, I had emailed this company to share a success story. There was this guy, I don't know if you're a fan of professional wrestling. Just hold with me a sec. You'll see where I'm going. This guy named Dimas Dallas Page in 2009, 2010, started a company called YRG Yoga, yoga for regular guys. And I was like, I'm a regular guy. I'm going to try yoga. But he had put this transformation video up on the website of this guy who was a paratrooper named Arthur who had lost like 100 pounds. I was like, oh man, I can do that from yoga. So I ordered I'm going to age myself here. I ordered the DVDs. I I ordered the DVDs. This is 2011. I have documentation of this. And I did them in my living room without telling a soul. No one knew. No one. And I started dropping some weight. I started getting in shape. I could do a push-up. I could move my body, right? I could actually like get into some of these poses. And this hot yoga studio opened in Indianapolis. And I was like, I'm gonna go do hot yoga. And Ken, this is 12 years ago in Indiana, bro. Nobody was doing hot yoga. But you know what I did? I drove to the studio and I knew there was gonna be hesitation because I was terrified. Like this was probably one of the scariest things I'd done to this point in my life. And I sat in my car and I just watched fit person after fit person after fit person walk into this studio. And I was like, oh man, I can't do this. Look how in shape they are. They're healthy. They're fit. That guy has abs. That girl has R. Like, what am I doing? And I asked myself, like, what are you doing, man? Do you want to create this life or not? Do you really want to be this person that you keep imagining in your head? And I was like, yeah, I do. And so I walked in the studio and I did my first hot yoga session. And that was the thing that people have to leverage. Do the thing you know you need to do, especially if you're scared, because that's the right thing to do.
Mm.
And that transformed my life forever. But it started with a baby step. It started with ordering DVDs, sitting in my living room, not telling a soul, to 3 or 4 months later, walking into this hot yoga studio, and then eventually making it a part of my daily life. And that's what it is. You have to be able to delay gratification because I didn't get a six pack until I was 33. It took me like 6 years of constant work and effort to really get in great shape. And then it's like, okay, cool. If I can do that physically, what happens mentally? Well, I got out of debt, got into better relationships, fixed the relationships with my brothers, showed up better in my life and all of the elements and aspects of who I am. And that's the thing. It's like, if you could actually delay the instant gratification of knowing that one protein shake isn't going to lead to a six pack, and you can wait 6 to 7 years, you will get what you're seeking. And on a long enough timeline, we all get what we're seeking if we're willing to be patient.
Oh, that's so good. You know, one of the things I wanted to dive in to you today is really releasing guilt and shame.
Yeah.
How do we adopt this new identity? Because sometimes we've done things in the past because of our conditioning, sabotage our lives in certain ways, made mistakes, whatever it might be. And we want to change as an individual, but we're kept with this thing that we did, whatever it might be.
Mhm.
Saying, I am this, I am a bad person, or I feel guilty for this. How the process of this transformation of adopting a new identity can release our old mistakes. I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. If you are, I just wanted to let you know, join our community. There's so many free resources and a great community of people that desire health, happiness, human potential, to have more in their life, more health, more energy. And when you have those two things together, you could create more happiness, more abundance, whether it be financial, romantic, all these things in your life. And if you're just starting out, you don't know where to go, just sign up for thrivestatestarter.com, because in there, you're going to get a bundle of information that includes a longevity ebook, a longevity and performance resource guide, lecture notes that come from my keynotes at Google, at Fortune 500 companies, all the insights in that keynote in lecture slide form given to you. And then finally, breathwork. I share 3 powerful breathwork exercises to access calm, which really gives you clarity and peace during the day, to access energy if you need to wake up and really motivate yourself, and finally a breathwork routine that you could do every single morning so that you could be very intentional with how you create that day. You could find all this stuff delivered free to your inbox at thrivestatestarter.com. And our community is growing. If you want to be a part of a community of people that desire the Thrive State, that are really in Thrive State themselves, and help other people along with that, you could be a part of the community. You can get group coaching from me. We do breathwork sessions, meditation sessions, and you also get to drop in and participate in podcasts in the future. You could find more about the community at mythrivestate.com. That's mythrivestate.com. So check out those resources. You're not going to be disappointed. And please enjoy the remainder of this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, bro, that is the whole thing right there. I called my little brother. I was at the beginning of this journey. I'm like 26. My brother had did multiple tours in the Middle East. He had been home for a while. I hadn't called him, hadn't talked to him, hadn't texted him. I wasn't there when he came home. Nothing. I was a complete abandoned brother. And I call him and I go, "Hey man, how's it going?" He goes, "What do you want?" And I could hear the like vitriol in his voice. He was like, "What do you want?" I go, "Hey man, it's just been a while. I wanted to connect with you, see how you're going, blah, blah." And he says to me, "Don't call me. You're not my brother." And he hung up on me because of all the decisions I had made, all the inactions I had taken, all the times I didn't show up, all the lies, all the hurt, all the not supporting when I had the opportunity to. There was a tremendous amount of shame that I had in that. Not only for that, but in my relationships with everyone. I was always sabotaging. I was always destroying them, always lying and cheating and hurting people and getting what I wanted, putting me first, not understanding that it was really a survival mechanism. That doesn't excuse it. Let's be very clear about that because people leverage that and be like, "I was surviving." No, I was surviving, but I was also an asshole. And so in that, it was like, okay, I did what I thought I was supposed to do based on the information and data that I had, built in this concept that I needed to seek survival.
Yeah.
Our number one mission as human beings is to survive. That's it. That's the whole game. That's the whole purpose of the brain. Survive as long as you can to procreate. That's it. That's the game. The guilt and shame, though, that came with that took a lot of work to move through. But it only really started to transpire into a shift by leveraging time, like being patient, like truly being patient and forgoing the instant gratification of forgiveness from others because I would call my brother. And most shame and guilt is actually not even about us as the individual, it's about the actions and the impact they've had on the other.
Yeah.
And so I would keep calling my brother. He'd be like, "Don't talk to me." Click. I try to show up. He'd ignore me. The other ones too. And then eventually, because I was leading me first, they saw the transformation. One of my little brothers, he was literally just here with me this weekend. The other one, he helped me pack my car and move across the country and spent multiple days driving. And we had rebuilt the bonds and the relationships because I led first. I showed up first. I first did the thing that I needed to do. I stopped blaming myself. I stopped blaming others. I took accountability and responsibility. And then I inserted this word that people talk about a lot, but they don't really understand. And I gave myself grace because here's the reality: we're humans, we're simply having a human experience. None of us actually know what we're doing, believe it or not. Every day is like Groundhog's Day because every day you're waking up and you're kind of actually reliving the same day every day, but there's nuance and changes that happen and occur. And so I just started just trying to allot myself the space of forgiving myself. Forgiveness is one of these interesting words that often is the precursor to removing shame and guilt. You hear forgiveness a lot, and I think it's an important word. I think it's a powerful word. But there are some things that are just simply unforgivable. This is my opinion. I realize some people don't agree with me on this, but it's really about, can I let go? Can I just let go? Can I remove the emotional impact of the thing that has kept me stuck? A lot of times being my own actions. One of the really hard things that I went through is when one of my best friends got murdered, I had spent, I think at that point, it was like 6 years ignoring him,
Mm.
not talking to. I'm like, I'm changing. I'm not talking to you, right? I'm going into this career. I'm getting out of this neighborhood. Like your life is the same. I'm not talking to you. And when I found out he got murdered, dude, it was so incredibly difficult for me because I had the opportunity every single day for years to just pick up the phone and call him. And that forgiveness element came into play for me because I recognize that people serve a purpose in our life and people serve a season in our life. And it is not going to be easy to navigate the hurt and the pain and the shame and the guilt that come along with our decisions based on the impact of other people. But ultimately, if you can get to the point where you can truly acknowledge that you did the thing that you thought was best for you, I think you can shed some of that guilt. But you have to look at it from a very biased perspective, because is that thing really truly what's best for you? Or were you doing that because you're an asshole, right? Because you need to heal, because you need to learn to love yourself. You can't go cheat on your wife and be like, it was best for me. Like, I don't think that makes a lot of sense. But I do think what makes a lot of sense is understanding causation and correlation. How did you actually get here? That's the element that's often missing. And when you can discover that and sit in that truth, can you give yourself grace in it? Can you pause in it and say, man, I was actually set up to be avoidant of people, of conflict, of relationships, of money, of success, of health. Wow. Now that I acknowledge that, can I change? And that's where the grace element comes into play.
Mm.
Because if you're operating through shame and through guilt, you're never going to step into what's next in your life, because those are too heavy of a burden for anyone to carry. And this is what's hard, because people will acknowledge it and they'll apply grace and they'll sprinkle some on top. And then they'll be like, I'm just going to keep doing the thing that I was doing because I have grace for myself. No, you have a problem that you need to solve if you're still doing it, because there's a point of doing things in the unknown. And then there's the point of doing things because you know you're doing them. And that's where it gets really tricky, because if you're still doing the same thing, that means you're being ignorant, right? As in that you're making a decision that is destroying your life. And you should probably reassess that. Maybe get coaching, come to a seminar, whatever that thing is. And if you're willing to really sit in it, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be dirty. It's going to hurt. You're going to have to acknowledge the bad things that have happened to you that have led you to this moment. You have to acknowledge the bad things that you've done, and bad subjective. Again, bad for you is different than bad for me. But when you can get to that place and you can apply grace, that's where the turning point really begins.
When you talk about this vortex, this cycle of trauma that I think some people find themselves in, can you expand on that a little bit? How is it a cycle? And is the element of grace really the starting point to break that cycle?
That's a great, great question. Here's my interpretation of the vortex. It's that dark place in your mind where you get stuck. You think about this for a second. Mindset is really simple. I don't think it's explained the right way. This is my take on it. Mindset, this buzzword, is what we think becomes what we speak. What we speak become our actions, and our actions become our reality, right? And so everything in your head comes to pass. You see it all the time. Like, how many times have you had deja vu? We're like, oh man, I swear I did this thing before. Because you've already thought that, you've already seen it. That could be successes and failures. And so if mindset is that, but you're trapped in this vortex, think about the language people use for themselves.
Mhm.
People destroy themselves over nothing. I spilled the milk, was late for the appointment, I bought the wrong shirt. They go, oh, you're stupid, you're worthless. Like the words that they use for themselves. And it's like, if you said that to me, I would punch you in the face, and you're expecting to be successful. There's a disconnect there. You can't be more mean to yourself than the world is, because the world is already being plenty mean to you. So how do you navigate life and get out of this trappings of your own mind? And it actually starts with kindness.
Mm.
And it's kindness for yourself. Now, kindness is really about in the moment. Again, this is so much of what the context of this conversation is. Kindness to me is within the actions that you take. This morning, I had a call at 5 a.m. I'm on Pacific time. That's very early in the morning to get up and get straight to it. But I asked myself this question. I go, even because especially nobody wants to be talking at 5 a.m., right? But I was like, well, what's the mission? What's the goal? Is it kind of myself to go back to bed, or is it kind for myself to get up and do the thing I said I was going to do, honoring my commitment? And if you can do that in a long enough timeline, you start to pull yourself out of that vortex, because then you stop looping in negativity and you start looping into positivity. That is, here's what happens, man. People will go affirmations themselves to death, but nothing will be different because they haven't done anything to support the new identity that they're stepping into, i.e., that action. And so when you leverage that mindset, like think about this for a second. Let's say on the backside of this, somebody's watching and they're like, I actually really want to be able to journal. It's something that they've been thinking about for a long time. If they're always in their head, oh, I don't have time to journal, it's not going to work for me, I don't know if journaling is the right modality, do you think that they're going to have success in journaling? Absolutely not, right? But if they're like, I'm going to journal because I believe that it will bring me benefit. I'm going to journal because it'll give me a space to get these things out of my mind. I'm going to journal because literally every expert in the mental health industry says journaling is one of the best things that you can do for your mental health. They're going to then take the action. And then in reality, they will then be a person who journal. From the person who is not to the person that is really about this mindset. And that's the same thing of the vortex of the mind, right? If you are in negativity, I can promise you I can track your lifestyle and reverse engineer it into the exact thoughts that you have about who you are. And I can do that in positivity as well. And so I can reverse engineer where you are. Literally, I can look at you right now. I can go, all right, Ken is the successful doctor. He's in shape. He's written a book. He's somebody who's a leader. He's showing up in his own life. I can reverse engineer your lifestyle back into your thought process. And I go, I bet that he thinks to himself that it's possible. I bet that when it's on the line, he finds reasons to follow through. I bet that when he doesn't want to do the thing, he makes himself do the thing because he's decided that he is a person who is accountable to himself, his community, his family, his relationships. And I bet I'd be dead on, wouldn't I?
Pretty darn close, my friend.
Yeah. And that's the game. That is the game. Like, man, I keep using this word because I want people to think about it. Like, all life is a game. Like, that's all it is. And the rules of the game don't exist outside of your own head. And so if you create the rules of the game based on who it is that you choose to become, while reconciling the truth that the person that you want to become is probably going to take you 10 years, but you delay instant gratification for the long-term play, your mindset will slowly shift over time. I can't change you overnight. And you hear these people who are like, I've got the 12-hour solution to trauma. No, you don't. Stop lying. You do not. I've worked and studied under every expert almost every, in the world about this stuff, from Dr. Caroline Leaf to Gabor Mate to Judson Brewer to Mariel Bouquet, Tony Robbins, Tom Bilyeu, David Meltzer. Like, I've worked with the greatest minds in the world. I've interviewed most of them on my podcast. I've studied them. I've hired them one-on-one. We all agree. We all agree. It all just starts with one decision. And if you want to get out of the trappings of your own mind, that one decision, and this is what changed my life forever, was, can I lead myself with kindness? And does kindness actually mean showing up?
That's beautiful, because it actually gives a different perspective to the actions that we take. In your book, Unbroken, you dive into key concepts and strategies from healing from trauma. Well, two questions here. We want to move forward in our life, but potentially we've got a past that holds us back. Some people will, say, hey, just look for your future. Other people says you have to dig out and fix everything that's there. How do you find and divvy up when you're working with somebody in terms of how much time to be focusing on the future and the past?
Dude, that is such a good question. No one's ever asked me that. It's such a great question. All right, I'm going to tell you a little story. When I go to restaurants, when when you put your name on the list, they always have time next to your name. Can I always write now? NOW. Brother, the time is now. It's not yesterday. It's not tomorrow. It's now. This is the only thing we have control over. I don't know what's happening in 5 seconds, and I don't have any ability to change what happened 5 seconds ago. And we get trapped in future ideations. That's anxiety. We get trapped in the past. That's depression. And if you look at it, it's like, wait a second. Do you get to control that at all in any capacity? Nope. Now, where does the healing take place in this? Well, you have to understand that this journey is really about going deep and doing the work in your past and understanding what led you here. We are analytical creatures, period. When you are in a state in which you have not stepped fully into this journey, you are still going to be a hyper emotional person, making your decisions based on your emotions and operating as such, as opposed to when you can actually start to understand who you are more and the reasons that you are who you are and you've done the things that you've done, you get a little bit more analytical. And being more analytical actually really frees you. Like, it really truly does, because what you start to do is you stop leveraging what happened or wasn't, or what hasn't yet happened, and you start being here. Now, I will say this, and I always try to be transparent about this. I'm a nihilist. Like at the end of the day, I don't necessarily believe that anything that we do matters. But simultaneously, I hold this juxtaposition that everything we do every single second of every day matters more than anything. Right. So it's like this is kind of the way that I navigate the world. And because I believe that at the end of the day, when we're dead and we're dust, in 100 years, no one's going to remember who we are. It's like I want to know that I played all out and did everything that I could to live the life that I wanted to have based on the ideal that I want, not what you want, what I want. The trappings of the past lead us to this place of lack, of stuckness, of not enoughness, of trying to fulfill what we believe is going to make us whole. And the trappings of the future are where anxiety and self deprecation and self sabotage and all of these huge words that we throw around start to take place. Because in one, we weren't enough then, right, in the past. And in the future, we're not enough yet. So, how the hell do you navigate that? Right? It's by actually looking at and understanding how you got to where you are today so that you can get to where you want to go tomorrow. But in between those two concepts is this narrow, narrow scope of the now. And it's like, can you just literally do the thing now? Can you be kind to yourself now? Can you heal the relationships now? Can you change the way that you consider money now? Can you show up and invest into the program now? The if then scenario destroys more people than anything else on planet Earth. If my childhood had been better, then I'd be a different person. If I have more money, then I can be different in the future. And it's like, dude, just do it today. Just do it right now. And that healing thing is like, you really got it, bro. The work is in the showing up. It really is. Like, you gotta go to therapy. You've got to journal. You've got to do the work and have a coach and learn and be studious about this journey and learn from great masters like you and show up to the event when you say you're going to. And over time, you'll heal those things. Look, I tell this to my clients all the time. In 15 years, you're going to be sitting in your car, you're going to be driving somewhere, and this thought is going to pop in your head about what you deserve and what you don't deserve. Even though you've been doing the work for 15 years, you've been showing up, you've been going to courses, you invested all your money, you're in that place of healing and growth, and your life is totally different. Because you can look at your life in 15 years, and if it's the same as it is today, you're in trouble, right? But I'm going to guess because, especially if you're here, that's not going to be true. But in that moment, your brain is going to create this scenario in which you start to question your worth. Ah, don't you remember when you were 7? You're 48, bro. Don't you remember last year? It's not last year anymore. Oh, you think you deserve the future? And it's about reminding yourself about what you're capable of, who you are, what you've been through, and allow it to exist. More people, I believe this to be true. I believe that more people are terrified of success than they are of failure. Dude, we're really good at failing. We are Olympic gold level champions of failure. But because success is an unknown paradigm in something that we don't understand, we will do anything possible to not have it. Because think about this. Again, if our conditioning is that we are not enough, we are not worthy, we have no identity, you don't deserve success, and that's buried in you. And the number one mechanism for life is survival based on the brain's function and purpose. Then the second you step into the unknown, which is success, the brain's going to revert its behavior patterns back to the past to keep you safe. That is the craziest thing. Like, it's like, I want this over here so bad. Like, I want to be successful, whatever that means for you. Have the family, have the career, have the money, have the health, write the book, have the podcast, do the summit, be a good person, lose the weight, whatever. And then your brain is like, no, you don't. This is uncomfortable. Don't you know what happens when you're uncomfortable? We don't want to do that. Let's go back to porn, video games, smoking, drinking, and eating fast food. And it's like, if you can just acknowledge that, man, you'll actually change your past and you'll change your future. And then exponentially and quantumly, you're going to impact your life and generationally in ways that you don't even understand. Because your one decision to show up for your life today creates a butterfly effect that impacts everything in perpetuity.
Woo! I just got like all goosebumps right now. I mean, that resonated so much because And I really do believe that there is a consciousness that's deep within us that is far greater than the traumas of our parents, grandparents, and ancestors. That when we could tap into that and follow that place vibrationally, we are able to rip apart all that they've been through. And you are actually the manifestation of their biggest dreams before. And when you do the
Mm,
work, mm, when you
good
do the
stuff.
work, you can just really pass on this new energy and vibration to, your entire generational line. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. And you have to be willing to be unafraid of that.
Yeah. Your book Unbroken, you talk about concepts of really doing the healing work. I mean, it's a transformational book, but can you touch a little bit on some of these core concepts that the people who don't know much about healing, if you were to give like the key sort of strategies that people who are just starting out can apply now, what would it be?
Yeah, man. I wrote Think Unbroken. What I actually should have subtitled it is these are the basic core tenets of how you begin this journey. Right.
Mm,
I think that would have been a more apropos title. But that said, so in my passport, there's a photo of my grandmother. When I was about 12 or 13 years old, I was watching Anthony Bourdain's first television show, A Chef's Tour, right? Maybe I was 14, somewhere in that window. And, Anthony Bourdain traveled the world, going all the places, eating all the food, meeting all the people. And I remember I looked back at my grandmother. She was in a rocking chair, had on one of those nightgowns, sitting there chain smoking Misty Slim 100s, drinking a Pabst Blue Ribbon. And I look back at her, Ken, I go, one day I'm going to travel the world. And she goes, I don't know about that. The world's a dangerous place. Think about what that does to you when you're a child. I don't know about that. You probably shouldn't do that. Bro, my grandma never even got on an airplane.
mm,
How does she know about the world? How does she know what's dangerous and what's not? And I remember sitting there and be like, all right, you'll see. Dude, I've lived in over 12 countries and been to over 30. And I'm getting ready to go on a South American tour here in just a couple of weeks. And I keep this photo of my grandmother in that passport because it's a reminder of what I want to do when people tell me that I can't or I shouldn't. And I was sitting and I was having a conversation with somebody and I was like, I'm going to write a book one day. And do you know what they said to me? I don't know, man. That seems awfully hard. I wouldn't do that if I were you. And when I was 9, this is weird. I don't share this very often. When I was like 9, I had written a vampire romantic comedy screenplay. And my mother tore it up
mm.
and threw it in the trash can. I'm a writer first, Ken. Like this, I'm actually getting ready to start writing my 4th book very shortly. I'm a writer first. And it was just, I was sitting on the beach living in Thailand. And I thought to myself, my grandmother told me I'm never going to travel. And here I am. My mother told me I'm never going to be able to be a writer. Here I am. And I took out my laptop and I outlined it and I just said, I asked myself a question because I think that there needed to be a context. Because you've written a book, it is incredibly difficult. It took me 2 years and 10 renditions to get the book that I wanted to get. And I just started with an outline. And I said to myself, what is the thing that I could teach people about this journey that is palatable in a way that they can apply the practices immediately? And that's what it was. It was kind of this conversation. And I said, can I talk about ACE scores? Can I talk about the journey of healing? Can I talk about shame and guilt and forgiveness? Can I talk about what it means to live life on your terms? Can I talk about values? Can I talk about basically a 101 course curriculum of the high level, non DSM conversation about this journey? And then can I give it to people? And can we, here's what's really interesting. If you go look at that book on like Amazon, I think we have like 85 reviews, 100 reviews, something like that. You know what's very strange about that though is we've sold over 10,000 copies of that book on our own.
Mm.
And we made it a #1 best-selling book in multiple categories. And we've been listed on that book's won awards and it's helped me be to where I am today. But the reality of that book, when I sat down and I wrote that starting 5 years ago, sitting on that beach that first day in Thailand, it was really about one thing. Can I teach people what I understand to be the beginnings of this journey?
Mm.
And that's it.
That's so beautiful. Michael, brother, I mean, I had goosebumps throughout multiple points in this conversation, which just means that we vibrate and resonate at a very, very beautiful level. So thank you for sharing your journey, your gifts, your knowings with the people here, this audience here on the Thrive State Summit.
It's an honor, my friend.
I hope you enjoy that episode of the Thrive State podcast. And if you're finding that this content is really helping you and your family members, please consider supporting our mission and our cause of elevating health, happiness, and human potential for people all over the world. You can do so by making sure that you subscribe to this podcast, sharing it with your friends and family members, and leaving us a 5-star review wherever podcasts are heard. All these things are going to really help elevate the show and to give us the resources to continue to bring more content just like this to yourself as well as the people that you love. If you haven't already, you might want to consider joining our community. We actually have a community where people get to engage with me in group sessions where we do breath work, meditation, where we do challenges together, really to be able to get us access to health, happiness, human potential so that we could have longevity and performance in our life as well. You can check out our community at mythrivestate.com. That's mythrivestate.com. And if you haven't already, pick up a copy of my book, Thrive State. It really gives you all the tools, the pillars that you need to create a blueprint to control the energetics of your life. Who are you? How do you show up in the world? The choices that you consistently make create an energy in your body, and you can control this. And when you can control that, you also control the messages you give to your DNA that gives you access, again, to optimal health, longevity, and peak performance. And let me also just share a free gift to you. If you haven't already, please pick up my longevity and performance bundle where I share lecture notes, ebooks, breathwork exercises, and longevity and performance resources at thrivestatestarter.com. Thank you so much for being a part of this community. Thank you for helping us grow. Remember always, my friends, that you are your best medicine.